I don't think there's anything at an estate sale that I wouldn't buy. Recently, I bought a toilet seat at an estate sale, and I think that speaks to my limitations in terms of what I'm willing to recover secondhand. I think everything, with a good cleaning and a new context has potential, including toilet seats. Hi, I'm Megan, and this is my handmade home in Austin, Texas. So when we first bought this home, it was definitely a blank slate. Basically everything that someone does when they renovate a house to quickly sell it. So it had new carpet that was fairly cheap and freshly put in. It had gone through a series of very kind of light renovations, I would say. So the house was originally built in the 70s. We were kind of starting with something where you had to squint to see the base of the home and really see those 70s bones that could be brought to life if you start kind of backtracking some of those renovations and put some bolder spin on things. My favorite DIY project that I've done so far has really been one that had the biggest impact on the space. And that was a DIY frame wall where I was trying to solve for, in our guest bedroom, I wanted to do something like molding that added a little bit more texture to the space. But I didn't really want to install permanent molding because I wasn't sure that that was the look and feel I wanted for forever in that room, and having to take it back down again would definitely be a little bit of a time and cost suck. It was the first room that I really designed end to end with a clear vision in mind. I wanted to bring in those kind of Texas tiki jungle elements that we have throughout the rest of the house, but bring them up a little bit more prominently so it really felt like a vacation space for people who came to stay with us. And then I really knew that I wanted to display one piece of art in this room and anchor everything on that. Really anchoring the color palette and playing up a specific piece of art that I had commissioned by a local Austin artist, Whitney Avra. She's amazing. She does mixed media art on top of photographs. So we selected the photograph together, and then she brought in different fun kind of design elements into this to make it really pop. Having a home that's authentically from the 70s, it's really more about getting back to what was originally there versus having to think about how I can preserve it. I think what we've lost over the years of renovations is folks kind of layering on top of those original 70s elements. And now what I'm doing is trying to figure out not just how to get back down to the 70s bones, but also how to highlight and illuminate those features in the home. My office space was the first space that I renovated in our house just because I was spending so much time in it working from home. So before it was, 4 white walls, we had carpet in here that we had ripped out and it was just painted concrete at that point. So there really wasn't much character to the space. I had done with it what I could just to get by, using it as an office space, but it really didn't have any elements of myself in it yet, which was really important to me as this being uniquely my office and a very personal space versus the rest of the house being integrated, with both my husband and I living in those spaces. This is really kind of my home base for both my work life as well as mid-century millennial. Every single room in our house really just felt like a blank slate, and this one in particular, being that I'd spend so much time here, I really wanted it to feel inspiring and more creative. One of our favorite parts about living in Austin and somewhere warm is being able to have a little bit more of an outside life as well as an inside life. So when we saw that there was a large screened-in porch area that was also covered, we knew that we wanted to make that actually really feel part of our living space and more integrated than something that feels like a uniquely outdoor space. So when I designed that tiki bar space, it was really meant to feel like an extra living room or an extra entertaining area. We're not huge drinkers, but we do like to entertain folks and have somewhat of a bar vibe without that being in our main living space because it's not something we would use every day. So right now we are in an extension of the outdoor living space. I've always really wanted a pool, but knew that I needed to do it on sort of a DIY budget. So we got a stock tank pool, which is the Texas version of an above ground pool. So once I had that, it was probably at least a couple weeks after I was surfing Facebook Marketplace, which I do a lot, and came across one of probably my wackiest Facebook Marketplace purchases, which was this 12-foot avocado. I have no clue how it was marketed towards me, but I found it, 50 bucks. We ended up strapping it onto a rental truck and getting it back here, and ever since it's been one of my favorite features of this outdoor space. It's definitely a conversation piece and a really fun lawn ornament that I would have never found otherwise. So when folks visit our home, the first thing that they typically say when they walk into our space is that I've changed a lot of things about the space. And that speaks a lot to what my design style really is, and that's iterative, it's always evolving, it's, you know, finding something that I love out in a estate sale, integrating it in, and then either, you know, going further down that path or, you know, taking the room in a slightly different direction. When you first walk into our house, you're in this very open floor plan living room, dining room area. We really wanted this living room area to feel sort of like a mid-century 60s sunken living room vibe, very loungy and comfortable for watching TV and just really have it be a relaxing space. So our living room and our dining room do share a big open space. And as much as I wanted a relaxed, kind of comfortable vibe in the living room, I did want to have a more formal dining room space. So I ended up putting this big rattan wall unit here, and I swap out vintage glassware. Right now I have a big display of amber glassware. Something I love to go look for at estate sales is any kind of vintage glassware. I feel like it's kind of one of those like least picked over items, even if you go to an estate sale the second or third day. Another element that I am obsessed with in this dining room is this painting. I found it at a local Austin antique mall. It's one of those things that just completely stopped me in my tracks. For me, designing my spaces, I always knew I was going to make very bold choices that were super representative of who I am personally. So if I'm not getting a lot of strong response or you know, criticism, positive or negative, then I'm not really taking the risks that I intended to take when I first started out on the project. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Liz.
And this is our renovation story.
There were a lot of points in the renovation where I wanted to throw up my hands and say, I'm done, I'm leaving, I'm going to a hotel. I cannot stress enough how much I do not recommend living through your own renovation.
Was he positive during the whole renovation?
Annoyingly positive through the whole renovation.
It's true. I enjoyed the process a lot.
You enjoy everything a lot. It's like being married to a golden retriever. That's the best way I could say it. The house had sort of some mid-century bones we wanted to bring to life. But we wanted to do it in our own way. So keeping a really airy, clean California aesthetic. And then you can see throughout the house, it's not so minimal like a mid-century. There's kind of these funky 70s elements with the plants, with the textures, with some of the carpets and the materials that we brought in. We wanted to bring in a little bit more color and a little bit more intentional clutter. We did not work with a designer for this, so I was doing a lot of the design. It's a lot of work. It was like making 75,000 decisions on top of like your already demanding job.
I love that you can just see everything from the front door. You immediately not only see all of the house, but you see outside of the house and the pool.
With the light outside and the open interior, it makes it feel a lot bigger than it actually is. This is our living room. The space was much smaller. The wall came all the way in next to the fireplace. It was kind of wedged into the corners. You can't like sit around the fireplace.
Yeah, unusable for sure.
So we wanted to do a little work there and preserve it, but we wanted to make it more usable. So we actually moved that wall back. So now there's this nice seating area around the fireplace, which is one of my favorite spots. And we converted it to gas because now I can just click a button and it's on instead of having to build a fire. We call it like a conversation pit. Low-lying furniture and different textures inspired by those like sunken down circles in the living rooms in the 70s. We wanted to really kind of force everyone around a circle to be looking at each other and create a space that has like a sense of intimacy. I love, love, love coming in and seeing this.
It's a really inviting area. It kind of brings back that mid-century-modern feel to it.
As well as just keeping sort of a modern, clean California light aesthetic. We really like the fact that the house is an open space, but each space has its own purpose. So creates a really great spot. Sit together and watch TV or watch a movie, dim the lights, pull up the popcorn.
I'm really happy that Liz put some plants to just create kind of a faux experience that you're entering a new area. I really love that.
It also has like these big beautiful windows out into the backyard, so you kind of have this like beautiful light headed out back. We spend more time here than I like to admit.
One of the things that I absolutely loved about the house was the pool. It's bright, it's vibrant, so that's something that we definitely knew we wanted to leave alone.
Except that I'm dying to change the way the pool looks because we ran out of money and time.
Ta-da!
Where I'm standing actually was the very edge of a very small dining room. There's actually a wall right about here, I would say, and not a lot of space to like sit down and have dinner. So took this wall out. Now we can see into the kitchen. If you're in the kitchen getting dinner ready, you can also like see the TV or see the game that's on or connect with people in any of the spaces in the house. We wanted, first and foremost, a kitchen that felt more open to the rest of the house. We have people over a lot. We're kind of like the house where everyone gathers. So having a kitchen where our friends could come, we could cook and drink wine together. I didn't love waiting 2.5 years to get a kitchen that felt really like comfortable and excited to cook in, but it was worth it. I remember one particular day coming home after a long and challenging day at work, coming into my cold, dark, dusty, drafty house with tarps where the windows and doors should be, and it was probably all of 45 degrees outside and inside my house. Kitchen was in the garage. By kitchen, I mean we had a microwave, a hot plate, and a toaster. I microwaved a burrito. I walked back into the bedroom where I sat on the dog's bed and the burrito was still frozen in the middle. And I started crying because all I had to look forward to was finishing my frozen burrito, do the dish on the floor of the bathroom in the tub, go to bed in my cold house, wake up the next day and do this entire thing again. That was the moment where I just started to lose hope that we were ever gonna have a real house with windows and doors again. Which brings us to the kitchen. This is my favorite room in the whole house.
Absolutely.
The kitchen was small and walled off. So it was like in the middle of the house, and the house is kind of a U around it. It's a little door on one side, so if you wanted to get in the kitchen, you had to go through the whole house and back. Everything floor to ceiling were these like blue tiles with grout in them.
Grout.
And no offense to all the tile lovers out there, I love me some tile, but not where I'm going to cook my food.
Yeah.
It just felt gross.
It was gross.
And I really love to cook, so. Kitchen has a lot of features I always wanted. I wanted a big kitchen island that people could stand around, drink wine at, prep food at, cook together. That was like build the renovation around that for sure. We put in custom cabinets. We also put in quartz countertops because we felt like they were easy to clean and they're also hard to stain. We put in a solid backsplash by the stove. Our contractor was really pushing us toward tile and grout, something you like more traditional. And we kind of had this vision to do a big solid piece. And it's probably the thing we get complimented on the most when people come in. Everyone immediately also recognizes what we did, which is you can clean it really easily. And then we had a little fun, like with the appliances.
The pink fridge plus the walnut absolutely brings a mid-century modern, plus kind of a hip, bohemian style to the kitchen. The house embodies who we are. Entertainment, hospitality, and I hope people feel the love that is in these walls.
Conveniently enough, our open concept kitchen leads into our dining room. For obvious reasons, food to table, this makes it really, really nice. But even though it's open concept, the dining room still feels intimate. So we can sit around with our friends at dinner and have a moment around a table, which is like one of my favorite things to do. It's just nice. It's nice that you can just pop back in the kitchen, of course, if you need something. It's nice that if you're in there cooking, you're not separated again from everybody out here. We wanted to do a lot of finishings that would make it feel like a very distinct space, even though it's sitting in an open plan. So we went very bold with the wallpaper. It matches the green of all of my plants. It brings a little nature into the room and makes it feel intimate. But the plants actually help define the space too.
Originally the house was kind of quadrant off. One of the things we had to do in order to make sure that this all connected and lost all the walls is to put in a new structural beam. The structural beam was a whole process in itself. It was like 20 men who had to come in, lift the beam, put it on the ceiling, and that's what allowed us to lose entire walls here with just one single beam to really give us the maximum look between the rooms. But the flow above needs to feel like you're not having to duck or emotionally duck to enter another room. Emotionally duck.
Wow. All right, over here, we put in a bar. When we wanted to open up the house, and do all that structural work with the beam and creating this open living space, we had to leave up a 6-foot section of wall to make it structurally sound. So right in the middle, we had this challenge of this 6-foot section of wall and thinking about how could we make it look intentional instead of like something we had to do. And we thought, why not make it like a showpiece, like a bar? So picked up this kind of tile pattern. Then we actually laid it all out on the floor and figured out how it would fit onto this wall and be a really, really stunning backsplash.
Something kind of unique and different.
This is the primary bedroom, and it's a really big space, and this is actually the wall that we pulled in 3 feet.
So just behind this wall is the fireplace. Brought the wall in, and still this place feels very large.
Another space where we took a wild swing with the wallpaper. We actually went with peacocks for some reason, but it was kind of fun because it's a bedroom. It's not out in your main house, so we thought we could go a little wild with the wallpaper in there. I don't remember how we settled on blue peacocks, but I really love it.
How does anyone? And more plants, because Liz loves plants, and I do think it actually brightens up the room quite a bit.
It feels like a very relaxing escape, and it's just like a bedroom you just want to like curl up in your pajamas and read a book and fall asleep. With, yes, more plants. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
Out in the garage, we had to do a lot with a little bit of space out here. My wish list was long. A storage room, because it is a garage and we have to put our crap out there. We work out a lot, so it had to be a gym. It had to have an office space. It's where we do our laundry. We needed an extra guest bedroom. So it's a Murphy bed that we actually installed. So for most of the time, it's a work from home space for someone who has a loud voice on calls early in the morning that we can just shut him out in the garage. But you can just flip it to a Murphy bed, and it's a really comfortable spot for guests and a nice little spot to hang out. Am I forgetting anything?
More plant area.
More space for my plants, and you know, probably a place just to hang out and be apart from everyone else when you needed to be. So however many things that is, that's what we wanted to turn that one space into. No problem.
And a beer fridge is always appropriate.
Also another fridge. I call this place basement chic.
Basement chic. It's kind of our little hangout. And the thing I'm probably most proud of is this is the room I built with my bare hands. Everything from the wood walls to learning how to put the laundry in, which thank you YouTube for teaching me, to putting in skylights. Everything from the drywall to installing the TV is something that I actually made. So over the course of 7 weeks, and really with the leadership of Liz, I kind of took the experiences that I learned from the house and actually did the garage kind of by myself. So that was really, really quite fun to be able to take the lessons of what was happening inside my house and apply them to the garage and make something that fit all her boxes. A lot of cuts, some tears, definitely some blood, but it was definitely worth it because I really take pride in it. This basement chic area that is kind of just original beyond original and allowed us to put our own personality to this garage.
I know there's a saying that you should never renovate together if you value your marriage or something to that effect. But Mike and I actually line up mostly on design, aesthetic, and the important renovation choices. So like approaching it as a team makes all the difference.
I would say this renovation actually brought us closer together. I'm just so happy that we were able to build this home together. And that's really special to me.
Yeah, and seeing it like come to life over time. This house really like allows us to live the life we want.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Sean.
And this is our renovation story. I just love the whole experience of living here and how it caters so well to our lifestyle. I never want to leave. This is my vacation now. Before we bought this house, we were living in a little area in Atlanta called Virginia Highlands, and it was 500 square feet. And that was where we moved in together.
So originally it was Sarah who had the condo downtown while I was working all along the East Coast in various factories. I was working my way back down to Atlanta to be close to Sarah. Mid-pandemic, I left my manufacturing job, came down to Atlanta, moved into the 500 square foot condo with Sarah and her 2 cats. And joined my family small business in residential home construction up in the Milton area.
He was commuting an hour and a half each way, getting out of the city and then coming back after work.
I like to think that I'm a good driver, but ultimately the nerves are going to overwhelm anybody at some point.
Yeah, he was pretty fried. at the end of the day.
We ended up trying to find a place that was both a little bit more spacious to stretch out and not be stepping all over each other's toes, but also wouldn't be bumper to bumper traffic for 3 hours of my day every single day.
We started looking for a house in 2020.
So mid-pandemic, here we are in the middle of both the global pandemic, but also one of the craziest housing bubbles that we've experienced, at least in the last decade or so. We actually took a map of where she was working, where I was working, and then found the exact midpoint, and that's where we started on Roswell, where we are now.
It was really important to find a house that was surrounded by nature because I love to run. We love to go on walks together. We love kayaking, which we can do in the lake out back now. And especially when looking during the pandemic, we were craving that proximity to the outdoors, and this checked all of the boxes for us.
This home in particular came on the market on a Thursday afternoon, and by Friday, they were planning on having an open house. So come open house time, we see 16 to 25 cars lining the street with people clamoring to get a look inside. I'm sure we weren't the only ones to recognize the charm that this home had. We're looking at each other like there's no chance, there's no way we're going to be the lucky ones to end up with it, but let's put in our offer.
You cannot find a spot like this so close to the city, on the lake. Even in this neighborhood, there aren't that many houses like this, and so we immediately knew we needed to jump on it.
There were 16 offers on the home over the course of a weekend.
Even though the bidding war was super intense, the inside could definitely use some love. Green shag carpets, original 1970s fixtures, floral wallpaper everywhere. It was a time capsule. We were thankful that Sean happens to work in the industry, and so we knew that we could make it our dream home.
We've heard it not once, but a couple of times that this looks a lot like the Brady Bunch house. And so we really wanted to keep the charm and the mid-century modern aesthetic. We just wanted to give it a facelift. So a lot of the home and exterior is original.
We painted the brick, we painted the board and batten, and that was actually a really intense process trying to figure out what would look nice. I did a lot of mock-ups to make sure that the colors were going to complement and have the right amount of contrast, because once you paint a house, it's painted. In the back, we used the framing of the original deck to build a brand new deck.
We had my dad, again, being a home builder, was able to come over on his weekends and spend time with us and actually walk us through or work with us as we rebuilt the deck over the course of several weekends. Needless to say, we really did put some sweat equity into the renovation of our home, which really helped both with the cost, but helps us appreciate the home so much more that we now live in.
This is our backyard. We painted the exterior, both the brick and the board and batten. And then we totally redid the landscaping. The exterior renovations back here are the windows. We actually raised the pitch of the roof so that we could fit these 7-foot windows. We wanted them to be as big as possible.
The biggest advantage to this particular home is that lake view. And at the time, we only had a split fogged up window in the corner of the living room, and the rest of this back wall was brick solid. Couldn't see out. So that was number one on our list. Number two was to really take out some of the interior walls that were chopping the space up and making the home feel smaller than it really is.
In the inspection, we knew that there was lead paint and there was asbestos in the ceiling. And because we wanted to tear out walls and we wanted to cover up the tiled ceiling, we were going to have to encounter both of those things.
It cost quite a bit of money and time because we had to hire a professional crew that would essentially look like they were dressed in hazmat suits that had the right PPE in order to come in and remove the entirety of the sheetrock from the home.
Before, we had a wall separating the living and dining space from the kitchen. And so we did take out that wall and put in a beam to support the roof, and we wrapped it in hardwood that matches the hardwood that we have on the floor.
Usually hardwoods are a rather expensive part of a home, but we were able to find a supplier that had a bunch of extras left over from other projects. And essentially, we told them, hey, give us all your scraps, give us all your remnants, and make a collage. Installing that all together, sanding it, and then staining it all the same. And so even though there are different widths and different sizes and lengths, you really wouldn't notice it because it's got the consistent stain throughout.
So I think it gives the floor a lot more character. It feels a little bit eclectic, and especially when wrapping the beam, having the different widths of board makes it visually a lot more interesting. Behind us, we created a dining space that is very integrated into the living space and the kitchen, and so it feels very, very open, and we can see our backyard from anywhere on this floor. Best part is that all of the spaces are connected. I can be in the kitchen, Sean can be in the family room, and it still feels like we're spending time together.
In the original home, we had a shotgun window U-shaped kitchen on one side of the room, and we had a small breakfast area on the other. And now we removed that shotgun window, opened up this space, and transformed it into one kitchen that was functional for a group or gathering of people in the kitchen at the same time.
Everything in the kitchen is new except for the windows. We did design the layout so that we could keep the original windows. I loved picking out the fixtures in here. It's kind of where I started, and I expanded from what I picked in the kitchen. The hood was something that I was particularly excited about. It is custom, and I wanted it to be as neutral and as subtle as possible, but still it has a really nice finish to it. I wanted to pick out a neutral tile that still had some texture to it and would play really nicely with the marble. And so that's how we landed on this backsplash here. We have this massive island that we really enjoy both cooking on and entertaining with. And we have this waterfall countertop, which is something I was super excited about. This is a leathered marble that we found as a remnant. So it had been pre-cut and we were able to repurpose it for our kitchen. And so all of the marble that you see in here was found that way. The kitchen before did not have a pantry, and so we have this pocket pantry here with some storage that is easily accessible but easy to hide away when we have guests over.
So it's not an accident, actually, that all the paint colors and all of the decorative elements of the home are so neutral, because really what we want to do is draw the eye and draw all of your attention out to the magic that's happening in the back of the house.
And all of the colors that we have used are very intentional. So we have a splash of green on the island, inspired by all the green that you see out the window. But there are a lot of neutrals to highlight those pops of color and everything happening in our backyard.
The next challenge that we wanted to undertake was the primary suite.
And this is our primary bedroom.
Before we renovated it was one large open room, and it contained both the primary bed but also the primary bath in the same room. They were one and the same. And so while one person may be laying in the bed, they could see into the primary bath and even wave as someone was on the toilet.
We totally reimagined the space. This is the original fireplace. We took off the mantle to make it a little bit more modern and painted it the same color as the exterior of the home. In the original home, there were some flimsy shelves on either side of the fireplace, so we ended up putting in these built-ins for some extra storage and then some really beautiful floating shelves for decoration. So there's another beam in the master bed that's very similar to the beam downstairs, and we wrapped it exactly the same way to create a nice consistency throughout the home. We had to sacrifice a bedroom in order to create the space for our primary bath.
Yeah, so with the addition of our new interior wall, we were able to create the separation of both the primary bed, and now we can go into the primary bath.
Everything in here is brand new. It did not exist before. It's one of my favorite places in the house. It's so relaxing. It feels very spacious. Totally different than how it felt when we bought the place. At my condo downtown, we only had a vanity yay big for both of us, so this was huge.
Having the extra space means less fighting.
From start to finish, it took us about 7 months, which is surprisingly fast for the scope of work that we did, but it really helps to have someone working in the industry to push things along.
Who was passionate about getting out of a 500 square foot downtown condo and commuting 3 hours both ways. So that'll really speed up a process.
Renovating the whole house at the same time was super intense, especially for me trying to figure out paint colors, light fixtures, hardware for so many different rooms all at the same time. I learned a lot about how to streamline that process and how to reuse the same hardware in different spaces and still make it feel like a unique space by maybe switching up the paint color, switching up the light fixtures, but reusing things wherever you can.
I think we more than exceeded our original expectations. I think that this home came together and better than we could have initially imagined. I mean, it went from doodles to reality, and in the process we had a lot of fun, and we're extremely excited on how it turned out.
Even though parts of it were very stressful, I think we would both do it all over again in a heartbeat.
Oh, I'd do it over again 100 times, but I'm thankful that I don't have to, and it's only once.
Hi, I'm Gina, and this is Minnie.
And I'm JP, and this is Mikey.
And this is our handmade home
In Atlanta, Georgia.
So when I was looking at houses, one of the things that was really important to me was that it was near the East Atlanta Village. I really wanted to stay in this neighborhood. But when I saw this one, I knew it had good bones. It had brick, hardwood floors, a full basement, a big yard. It was the least scary option that I saw.
When people walk into our house, I really want them to have a wow factor. And I want them to look around and just be in amazement for a minute and have to gaze upon all of the things here because we've curated so many pieces.
So I'm an interior designer for Home Depot. I work on the catalog. So my job is pulling products together that we're going to then shoot in the catalog photography. I get accused all the time of making it too busy, but in my house, I can put patterns wherever I want.
My side hustle is antiques and vintage collectibles.
So since both of us work in the creative field, it's just natural for us to want to have like an experimental, fun, creative home. Our house is very unassuming from the outside, and then when you come in, and you're not expecting to see all this pattern and color, and people really have that explosion, you know, like, whoa, I wasn't expecting.
Okay, this is our kitchen where we love to entertain. This is like where all of our patterns kind of come together. We have green cabinets. We also have curtains that I made to go with the cabinets that have like a mod print to bring in the green. And then this is our collection of vintage glassware.
So I started collecting barware at least in the last 15 to 20 years. And I mean, it's really an easy thing to find at estate sales. You can find some pretty unique ones at times. I mean, this one, for example, I do love. This is a Georgia own. These are peanut quartet. There's so many interesting things you could find through glassware, honestly.
So when we were designing the kitchen, we had like a makeshift kitchen here for a while, and anytime we would entertain, people would just kind of congregate in this area. So we knew that we wanted to make this like the bar area. We knew we wanted to do the black and white floor, and I thought it would be a nice complement to do a white and black tile backsplash. So we actually got these two tiles from two different companies because this one didn't make white with black and this one didn't make black with white. But we decided to do the tile all the way to the ceiling to create kind of a focal point behind all of the glassware. We really wanted that view from the front door looking into the kitchen to have that wow. So that's why we went with this really, really busy pattern on the island, just as that little bit of icing on the cake.
So the green cabinets I actually recovered from a demolition of a home. They told me that they were just gonna throw them away. I kind of freaked out. So the dumpster showed up to the house, coincidentally. I was driving around looking for yard sales. And I saw the dumpster back into the driveway, and I pulled right in and asked, what's going on with the kitchen? And they were like, it's going in the dumpster. So I immediately was like, nope, let me please take this out. And they said, okay. So we were able to pull it all out, and we stored it for a minute and waited for the right time to get it into the house.
My reaction to the cabinets at first was, no, not green. He really had to kind of talk me into it. But when we started laying out the space for the kitchen, they fit perfectly. I think we ended up using every single piece that you brought home that day. When we got to do the lights for this room, we were looking at all different kinds of chandeliers, and I knew I wanted something really big, but we decided that it would be nice to do a collection of chandeliers since we have a collection of everything else. And all 3 of these were made by the same person in Palm Springs, and we had them do 3 totally different ones for us so that we could cluster them together to create one big piece. So the tattoo on my arm is a George Nelson clock. I've always been a fan of the story of the George Nelson clock. All the designers got together and drank a bunch of tequila, and the next day no one really knew who designed the clock. We actually have the George Nelson clock over here along with lots of other clocks. What are these, 50s to 70s?
Yes.
This clock is all about the zodiac, so it's got like all the different zodiac signs. Some of the little ones are more from the 50s. This one came out of my dad's house.
Is this collection complete?
Never.
There's a little room here. Yeah.
I might have a message out on Marketplace for one right now. So our favorite place to entertain in our house is our backyard because we have the best patio. Let me show you. So come on out.
We wanted a space with a hot tub. JP always wanted a sunken hot tub. And we wanted to create a space that had a little bit of privacy but didn't completely block the view because we get lots of deer in the backyard here and the trees are really beautiful. So we decided to go with this like triangular shape, which partially blocks the neighbors, and then we added a bar.
I mean, we are living our best Palm Spring life here.
Normally when we entertain, we keep that door open, and this whole patio will be full of people, and people just go in and out.
So we have a nice vintage sign back here that actually is a bit of Atlanta history. This is from the Stories 85 Twin Drive-In, and this actually was the sign that stood above the highway.
All of the furniture out here, we have several pieces of fiberglass. When he got this one, the fiberglass was actually like poking out, and he had to actually like finish it. The tiki torches are also vintage. JP had those in the attic for years, and we finally pulled them out for a party and then forgot to light them.
We're in the radio room now, so we call it because obviously we've got a wall of radios here. I've been collecting radios for well over 20 years now. It's kind of my first thing I ever collected. They're just so unique and individual. I think it's beyond what we do today as far as entertainment. They're all a piece of art. So yeah, this is probably one of the greatest, even though this is just a 70s little AM Panasonic. But just, I mean, look at where we've come from, you know. Even, I mean, the comparison of any of this to this is so crazy. I mean, we just went everywhere with the design of radio.
I've had to give him space requirements. Like, you get this wall of radios. If you want to keep something, you have to let something go.
We call it upgrading here.
He's always trying to sneak in a new shelf. What if I put a shelf above the window? He's even started adding tiny ones to the cabinets.
Oh, here's one of the best. Actually, I bought this for Gina when we first started dating, even though it was really for me. Who are we kidding?
I know, right? It was like my first birthday gift from him. I'm like,
But look, it's like a miniature
no,
version.
this is a retro, but still.
Like it has like a little record and everything. Why don't we design things like this anymore?
And we also have to talk about your bar.
Oh yeah, so this was a roadside find here, literally just in someone's trash. And I saw the purpose that it could do in another life. This is also another cheap find. I didn't even know if it worked, but I just thought it had such a classic look to it. Did a little touch up on it and powered it up, and it worked just fine. Now it's our main source of entertainment. I've actually got it powered up throughout the house, and it's actually generating other antique speakers, such as the one behind Gina. It's been really just a focal point of our house.
So this is our living room. Obviously one of our favorite pieces is the sofa. JP had this sofa when I met him. The cushions on it were disintegrating. The foam had diminished so much that they were like an inch thin, and they were wrapped in plastic bags to keep them from like shedding. So I tried to get a quote to have cushions made, and it was astronomical. So I just decided to do it myself, and I watched some YouTube tutorials, and I picked up a book on upholstery, and I remade all of the cushions and the pillows for this couch, along with the curtains that you see here. I think every home needs original artwork, be it made by yourself, made by your kids, friends, bought at local fairs. I work in the world of mass-produced artwork, and I love going into a home and seeing something super original. So my aunt painted this in 1975. Which is the year I was born. And then when I turned 18, after having every Christmas photo of me taken in front of this painting my whole life, my uncle gave it to me.
These two sconces are actually part of my collection from really early on. I just was so excited to find these. Anytime I can find any sort of adjustable lamps, I will buy them up. I do have a little bit of an obsession with mid-century lighting. So yeah, so it actually will slide up and
they have weights on them that
have weights
back down.
I love these chairs. I might have drove 2 hours for them just because I think she only wanted $60 for the pair.
Yeah, you can see the Alexander Calder mobiles in the pattern, which is kind of awesome. And then these Joan Miro sort of suns in the background. And we have the black and white, exactly, throughout. Our favorite paint color combo is definitely black and white.
Definitely black and white.
We have a black and white parade crew called the Crew of Optical Delusions, where we all dress in black and white stripes, and we try to use black and white as often as possible in our house. Or white and black. White with black, black with white. It comes in so many forms.
Even your dog.
Even the dog is black and
We're
white.
all on brand here.
Well, one of the boldest ways we've used black and white in our house is definitely the hallway. The hallway was kind of an uninviting place, really. We were, trying to figure out what we could do, and we just wanted to do something that made it a little more eye-catching. So this is all hand done. We spent about a weekend. It was really a lot of fun.
We knew that we didn't want it to be full pattern everywhere. We definitely wanted some breaks. So you see the pattern kind of jump up and go over the attic door, and then you don't see any paint for a little while. My favorite part of this room is that we decided to continue the mural into the doorway. So when you walk in our front door and you kind of look this direction, you really catch this edge of the painted wall, and it's sort of like, what's happening back there? We really like to maximalize on the creativity in our house, so we even swapped out all of the light switch plates. I think every room has a different light switch plate.
Yeah, I went ahead and decided I wanted a very 50s starburst look in our bathroom, and wallpaper really doesn't go well in bathrooms due to moisture, so I decided I could hand paint something like that. So I came up with this simple little starburst idea, and went from 1 to 4 into 400.
He did all of those little starbursts with a ruler and a paint pen.
It took about a weekend and then another 2.5 years to actually complete it.
So I think our favorite piece in the home, or mine, is the Jean-Pierre Renal that's hanging over our toilet. We went to Scott's Antique Market one Saturday, and we were looking for something that we could use as a countertop temporarily, and we found this piece, and it's like ceramic tile and grouted, and it was exactly the right size. We asked the guy how much it was, and he says $25. We're like, perfect, we'll take it. And as we're putting it in the car, we realized that there's Sotheby's stickers on the back of it. So we reached out to Sotheby's, and they said it's an original artwork from 1974, and that they would guarantee us $5,000 or more if we would sell it with them.
Ironically, it is above our toilet now, which is funny because it is the most expensive piece of art we have in our home.
So this is our primary bedroom. JP had these amazing bar cloth curtains. Our bedside table lamps are just the coolest lamps I've ever seen. I've never seen anything else like these.
This is a piece I framed myself, and you can see there's a double mat on it of pink and orange. I really like the set of mat that I did here with the narrow sides and the wide top and wider bottom. It's a very mid-century style. Well, I've been picture framing for almost 27 years now, so framing has become part of the house because we collect art.
I love so much what we've done with this home. It's so beautiful and people love this house so much. It's a very special house. We'll probably never sell it.
Hey there, I'm Brian Patrick Flynn. I'm the interior designer of HGTV Dream Home, and this is my own 1965 mid-century modern dream home in Atlanta, Georgia. And I want to give you a look at some of my favorite spaces and everything I've done since I bought this house about 10 years ago. So come on in and we will start with my entryway. But a lot of people refer to it as my art gallery because it technically is one. So when you first walk in the house, you immediately get a taste of my own personality and my particular taste in art. I don't like one medium. I like photography, I like abstract, I like representational, I like graphic art, I like sculpture, I like found objects, and all of those can be found on any wall in my entryway. This is my first trip 10 years ago to Iceland, and I loved everything about the mood of this photo. So it's one of the first things you see from 3 different spaces within the house. Also, I spent a lot of times in my earlier years going to flea markets and garage sales and estate sales, and I found this. It was actually free at a friend's estate sale, and I loved everything about it so much. It's referred to as a brutalist sculpture. It's from like the mid-1970s, and I even have sentimental things that wouldn't necessarily be art. Like my little nephew who's about to turn 5, he calls me Uncle BB. And I loved it because it was like just this moment in time when he was about 2 years old, so we framed it and added it to the wall. So any direction you look in my entryway, there's just all these stories of places I've been and experiences I've had, and I think that kind of gives people a little bit of a movie trailer as to the person who lives in this house before they make their way around. Let me take you into what we call the Great Room, which is the most recently remodeled part of the house, which kind of didn't even exist before, but now it's like a multi-purpose space that we use all the time. Professionally, I'm an interior designer, but I am also a production designer, which means I don't just design houses for people, residential spaces, I also design spaces that are meant for entertainment, like sets or vignettes. That really affects how I design my own home because I'm always thinking of how things look through the lens. So how do the colors play? What do the patterns look like? Can I tell by looking at this room what kind of person lives here? And that's the same way that I decorate and design houses for myself and for real people. When we remodeled this in 2020, the plan was we'd been home for a good 5 or 6 months and we wanted the feeling, this is very specific, of what it would be like to live in a modern treehouse. What we did was opened everything up, did everything bright white, not only the walls and the ceilings, but the floors as well. And I say that apprehensively because white floors are maybe not the most practical thing in the world, but for somebody who is totally inspired by natural light, they are the perfect choice because they bounce light around the whole entire house and everything seems very bright and happy all the time. One of the things that I try to do in almost every space I design is have a conversation starter. My artist friend who lives in Charleston, South Carolina, Sam, she creates original pieces of art out of felt. And she cuts them free-handedly into all different shapes and sizes and people. And because I'm such a music person, I love the idea of having this kind of motley crew of different iconic musicians from all these different decades. Right off my studio space is the cocktail lounge. My favorite things as far as interior design are concerned are interior architecture, I love custom upholstery, and I also love lighting. So this is the perfect example of a room that does all 3 of those things. I always wanted the feeling of having kind of like a 1960s or early 1970s nightclub in my own house. The best way to use the space was to create a built-in banquette that's U-shaped. And although it's white, people see it and they're like, that is so impractical. This is performance fabric. So this is indoor, outdoor, and everything wipes right off of it. It will never be perfectly pristine white the way it was when I first had it made, but it holds up pretty well. The other thing that I love about this is the gigantic disco ball. It's not that easy to find something this big, but I found my 42-inch disco ball at a party rental company in New Jersey. You never know where you're gonna find the things you're looking for. Just above my head is one of the coolest pieces of art you're gonna find in my house. This is a neon sign. When it lights up, it's bright aqua. and it's lyrics from this song that a friend of mine wrote that kind of compares life to what it's like remodeling a house or restoring an old, beautiful architectural gem. And so I took some of the lyrics and turned them into the sign because I love the idea that people know music is always gonna be on in my house, and there's a disco ball right above, there's usually cocktails going, and this truly does feel like you've been transported to a nightclub, even though you're in the center of my house. I was planning on doing a custom coffee table in here because there's so much space to fill inside of the U-shaped banquette. I was at a flea market and they had this. I could not believe the price. It wasn't very expensive, and it was 50 inches by 50 inches, which fills the space perfectly. And I kept thinking, I want clear because I love my rugs so much. My friend Meredith, who lives in Toronto, made this from scratch. And the idea was it was supposed to look like fragmented icebergs because I love the polar regions. So it was a match made in heaven because it's big, it holds everything I need it to hold, and I can see right through it to the rug. So this came home with me that same day, even though I did not have a car that could accommodate it. We found one by the end of the day. Similar to the way that I've delineated the cocktail lounge from the workspace, I've done the same thing over here with my TV room. And the thing that I love about using these divider screens is they allow the light to totally pass through without making a space darker, but at the same time, they add just a little bit of privacy. And this is the perfect example of why I like the privacy. One of my hang-ups as an interior designer is I love a TV in almost every room in the house. But I don't like TVs in rooms where I want people to come over and talk and have conversations. I think TVs should not necessarily be super visible. So this is my TV room. It has a 22-foot long L-shaped banquette. And it took me about 8 months to have this made because the company that I worked with wanted to make sure the pitch was exactly what I wanted for my height, which is 6'5". It's very hard to find a sofa for somebody who's 6'5" like me. After months and months of going back and forth to have this custom made, everything about it was selected. And the thing that really stood out to me about the actual fabric is this is a wool boucle. It is so classically mid-century modern because it has this very rough, nubby texture to it. When I first saw this fabric and I knew that it came in forest green, I was like, that's perfect. We've incorporated all these USB and outlets into the base of the banquette. What's absolutely the most expensive thing in the entire house, but it's worth it because there's plenty of room to just kick back and watch TV, and nobody else ever sees the TV except for us. We have a gigantic, industrial, oversized fan above us, and another thing you'll see in almost every room in the house here is the use of skylights. Luckily, we have skylights that open and close so we can ventilate, so during the harsh summers here in Georgia, we don't have to worry about being too hot. This room is also a lot less colorful, mostly because we're up here in the trees. We feel like we're nestled into the woods, and everything outside the window is either brown, gray, or green, so everything inside the room is the same as well. When people come over and they're like, why are there so many iceberg-oriented things in your house? I got married in 2017 in Antarctica. I'm not kidding. I legitimately made it all the way to the bottom of the planet where like nobody ever goes. It was the most magical experience ever. And when I got married, I have an artist friend who lives in Nashville, and she uses mixed media. And she made this gigantic 7.5-foot by 4-foot mixed media piece of one of our favorite icebergs we saw in this area called the Lemaire Channel in Antarctica. Almost anywhere you look in the house, there's some type of nod back to our experience in Antarctica, whether it's color, or whether it's art or texture. So the most recently completed space in the entire house is the opposite of an adult space to watch TV. It is a nursery because I'm expecting my first baby, a daughter, in about a week. So we just completed it, and you will be the first people to ever see this space. It took me a long time to get my head around what direction I wanted to go. I never realized how hard it is to narrow down your selections as an interior designer when you're doing your own house. I wanted a nod to a little Nordic explorer. I didn't want anything that had been done a million times before, so a friend of mine designed this wallpaper with me from scratch. So the whole idea is we have a little Nordic explorer, and she's out with her backpack and her teddy bear, and she is exploring all the Nordic countries. So when we have a little baby in the crib, she can see herself and all her little animal friends. I would say the hardest thing about designing my own home as an interior designer is there's too many options. I get hired by people to narrow down choices to 3 or 4 for every single aspect of the design process. I don't have anybody filtering that for me. Plus, I see every single thing that's out there at all the design centers, so it's like sensory overload. There's just too many options. And when you're doing every single room in your house and you're in charge of the budget and the timeline, The sky's the limit, which sounds fun, but in reality, I just need somebody else to help reel me in, and a lot of times that has to be me, which is not the easiest task. I had to get really clever with the budget, and when I was looking at gliders, I immediately went towards the gliders that are impractical from a price standpoint, and you're only gonna use it for 2 years. So investing thousands of dollars on a glider is not really the best use of your money. I was consistently going back to this particular glider, but I did not like the fabric it came in, so I kept skipping over it. And then I had an idea, wait, that glider is the most affordable one online. So I just bought it. Then I went and found this performance fabric that's in my favorite shade of green, which is pine needle or forest green. Had it recovered, and then also brought a little bit of a custom touch in with this welt cord, which is bubblegum pink. So for a fraction of what it would have cost to have something made custom, I bought something affordably and just had it reupholstered. The one part of the room where I splurged, and I knew I was always going to, was gonna be the crib. I fell in love with the overall look of this about 2 or 3 years ago before we even know we were expecting our first baby. What I love the most about it is the unique architecture of the crib. It has this beautiful X detail on each side, and then the crib itself is pure white. And because we're naming our daughter Clover, and I love the idea of it being very Irish and Irish stuff being green, we could do any color we wanted because it was custom made, and it's just a little nod to her name. So this was where the majority of the decorating budget went. Aside from the room just being super playful and being custom to our own daughter, I wanted to make sure it fit the vernacular and also the architecture. So there are a few nods to mid-century modernism here. We have a chrome mushroom lamp, which is super 60s and 70s. And also we have this really modern slatted ceiling. This is something my carpenter Michael did a few years ago, and I knew I wanted to add some architecture to a room that was otherwise just a rectangle with absolutely no character. And I think the lamp mixed with the ceiling and the incredible hardware that you see on the doors, those are starbursts from the 1960s. So I think those 3 little hints of mid-century really make this room appropriate for this house. There are so many touches in there that are so personal, and I'm really proud of it. It's kind of my dream nursery, but it's definitely not something that would have been requested by one of my clients. It's actually true and original specifically for my child, and that's what makes me love it even more. This is the space that we refer to as our family room, and it is towards the front of the house, and it's what connects the entryway to the kitchen. And it was kind of hard to design because it is kind of a pass-through space. So I had to get really clever with the way that we added the seating. So these are remarkably low modular seating pieces. We added 3 on each side. They create about 13 feet of seating space. And they're super low, which was amazingly helpful because one of the most expensive things in the entire remodel was investing in the steel windows and the steel doors. Because these are such a feature from the outdoors, if I had tall furniture, you'd be looking at the back of furniture from outside. A lot of times people fall asleep in this room, which is a huge compliment as an interior designer, because a lot of times when you live in a very mid-century modern home, people can find them so modern that they're cold or impersonal. But this house is so personalized that I think people feel really warm when they walk in. And the family room is always gonna be the place that gets the most traffic. This is the space that we as a family unit will spend the most time. So I wanted to create a really beautiful focal point with one of my least favorite things in the interior design world, and that is a corner fireplace. Corner fireplaces make it really hard as a designer or a decorator to create a space plan for furniture around because it's awkward. There's a door on this side, there's a window over here, but what I wanted to do is give it some personality. So if you look, this is very mid-century modern. These are matte and they all have different colors, and they were placed randomly with no grout, so it just has this really nice, imperfectly perfect look. And we went with a frame TV because when we don't have cartoons playing or children's programming on, we can put up our favorite piece of art here and it just looks like a framed piece of art. It's directly in the corner of where the kitchen meets the family room. Now, this actually is not my dream kitchen. This is a kitchen that has been more practical than anything else because when we bought the house, it was very dark and very low. The ceilings only came to about 8 feet. I had all this space to play with, and we added a skylight, we added all these steel windows, because I wanted the kitchen to also feel kind of treehouse-like. These are seamless cabinet fronts because I wanted this to be super minimal. We are open to totally changing this again, but right now it's working for us. It's just so minimal that when people come over, they're like, excuse me, sir, how do I open these cabinets? So this may look a lot different in about 2 or 3 years. I'm a very flexible designer. I like things to kind of move as I grow and change and my tastes evolve. But I would say when it comes to interior architecture, that's where I set things in stone to stay, to honor the overall vibe of the house. So there are some things in the house that are permanent, that are not moving, but they're more architectural and structural rather than decorative. The most used spot in the kitchen is the breakfast nook, which is towards the back of the house, all mid-century furniture, mid-century lighting. This is a space that is sure going to see probably the most family time aside from the actual family room. And I think we're pretty set up here in the breakfast nook too. We've already got our high chair. In fact, the high chair has been here longer than these chairs have because we've been so excited about this new change in life that we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. As the designer of the HGTV Dream Home, I often feel a lot of pressure to get everything perfect because I've got hundreds of millions of eyes looking at the projects that I do for work. So I assume people will think anything that I'm doing for my own private clients or myself is gonna obviously be Dream Home caliber. And there's a lot of pressure to do that, but it's also my own home. You know, I'm not designing it for somebody to enter for a chance to win. I'm designing it for me and my family. So there's a lot of pride in that. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time.